Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Here we go. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone's a special guest because they take the time to join me on my show. I'm joined by Dr. Steve Gladis. Now, I went through a positive leadership certificate through Mason, and I had the great fortune of meeting Dr. Gladis in that training, and we discussed how positivity or well-being should be infused into leadership. And so before we get into this episode, Dr. Gladis, can you just give another intro about who you are for the listeners?
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Well, it was my pleasure to have you in class. You were an active student, a lot of fun, and have carried it on even further. So we feel like it was a success. My background is I originally was in the Marine Corps for 3 years actually. And then then I was in the FBI. I retired from the FBI and taught at UVA and have taught at George Mason now for 25 years, and have my own business now. I do a lot of consulting and executive coaching, things like that, teaching, things like that. So that's kind of who I am, and I now have the pleasure of being able to write and research kind of whatever I want and not have to worry about publish or perish or any of that stuff.
I love it. And I know that you have quite a few books, and I know that you're doing a lot of things. One of the books I'm reading that I got recently was Leading Teams. So going into that, transitioning, you do a lot of leadership training. Why specifically did you think there should be a niche on positive leadership?
Well, it seemed to me that at the time that I wrote it, that, and that was some time ago, but it's even more relevant today with COVID and all those kind of things, that people were oftentimes, even wealthy, well-off, well-intentioned people sort of took a negative view to life and weren't as happy, though they had all kinds of reasons to be happy. I don't think people really understood what gratitude looked like and what kind of an effect it had on people. So I just started reading about it. One article led to another, led to a book, led to another book. And before long, I had amassed a bunch of research on it, and I started to organize it. And then I started to teach it, and, it really kind of took off. But I think the reason for it is that that I looked around and it didn't seem like people, especially around here, people who had a lot didn't seem to appreciate what they had. And that didn't make any sense to me. And what I found out in the research was that money, outside of having basic needs met, wealth was inversely proportional to happiness. And that the wealthier people got, if they did one study, I think it was people over $10 million in net assets, and they found out that they were less happy than the people who work for them, who made much less money. So it was that kind of weirdness that maybe, I saw it in students, who acted, not just all students, people in general, but students as well, that acted in like they were entitled. It's just another day in heaven, or my latte is not hot enough, or, it was like, what the hell? So to me, so that's why I kind of got into it and started trying to spread the word.
I love it. And you do a great job spreading the word. And I think one of the things I wanted to share with the listeners, I love the story about the boss, the two bosses with the same name. I can't remember, Bob and Rob, or where.
Phil and Bill.
That kind
they
of
rhyme.
the two bosses that rhyme, and how you talk about particularly someone that gives off good energy, makes you want to work for them, and then you saw the complete difference. And I love that story, so I wanted to share that too, because I think that really speaks to the morale part or having good character leads a team?
Yeah. People don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And so whenever you see high turnover rates in organizations, it always means poor leadership. They'll tell you all kinds of things like, oh, I'm leaving because for more money, or I'm leaving because, I want a better commute. It's never that. It's always the unspoken, I'm leaving. I'm really leaving because I don't like you, because I don't like the way you've treated me. So Phil was the kind of guy who always had your back. He was a good guy. He celebrated with you. He mourned with you. Bill was the opposite. And unfortunately, Bill came right after Phil. And as a result, when Bill came on, he didn't trust anybody. And as a result, within 6 months, about half of the team, really high quality leaders, left and went other places because they had the option. And that's one of the dirty secrets, is the good people leave first. And what you're left with is people who don't have options, who are usually the worst leaders. So you end up with this, a toxic, it creates a toxic residue of what's left over. Everything, because the good guys will leave,
It's like a vortex,
So
like a toxic vortex, and it's an
yeah,
ending cycle. So
yeah,
to break that cycle, like, if you were to go back in a time machine, to break that
yeah.
cycle, what as a consultant now, what would you do that has a continuous revolving door? Is it like fire the
Sure.
leader, get him out of here, or is
I
it
was just
like,
going to say,
or like a,
besides fire
coup?
Bill.
Yeah, or like besides fire Bill, or like have a coup, like a pot, like maybe
Yeah.
from the bottom up, and then and have people,
Yeah,
I don't know
like
how you.
he needed an intervention, is what he needed.
Mhm.
But I don't know that would have worked at the time. The only option that we had, I mean, if I could do it, I would have liked to have gone back as his coach, done the 360, talked to
Mhm.
some people, brought him the results, and hoped that would have made a difference. He had alcohol problems. He had all kinds of other problems that interlaced over top of this whole thing. So I'm not sure it would have worked with him, but yeah, the main I would have either tried to have worked with him or have him removed. I mean, the best thing would have been, he was not fit for the job. He was a smart guy, but he just wasn't up to the task. That's a very particular case. I think in most cases, if they're salvageable, you bring in an executive coach. But back then, that wasn't even a term. We didn't even know what that was. But rehabilitation is what he needed, and and what we see today is if you can get leaders to use coaching as a methodology, where they ask questions and try to get people to solve their own problems, you'd have far less of a problem. I think if there's one positive thing a leader could do, a single positive thing, is just listen, ask questions and listen. That's all you got to do. I mean, really, that's really it. I mean, because when you ask questions of people, not like cross-examination, but like if I come into your organization and say, hey, Phil, tell me what's going on in your organization. What are you proud of? What do you like the most? What keeps you up at night? If I ask you respectful questions, it actually raises your status level. If I ask, or if I come in and I say, tell me what I should know. I'm a new leader here, and I'm brand new, and I'd love to know what I should know about the organization. Bill, you've been here for 10, 15 years. Tell me what I should know. It raises your status level, and it subordinates my status. Even though I theoretically have more status than you because I'm your new boss, I subordinate it and raise you, and you walk away from that conversation saying, hey, that guy's a pretty good guy.
So, but
Really simple.
but I love that. But would you think that it was like active listening and really, really attuned listening? But then also, I guess, as a leader too, following it up with your actions. Maybe, that's a guy that's a really
Yeah.
good guy, but they actually took my input and tried some of the things
Great
I
point.
suggested, and I felt heard because they actually did it, not just glanced me over. I would
Yeah,
assume.
no, I think, yeah, two things. I think, yeah, listening to what you say and taking into consideration. You don't have to do everything everybody tells you. You
Mhm.
just have to listen to everything everybody tells you. Um, and you should be listening actively, not waiting for your turn to talk. A lot of people are just sitting there waiting for a chance to talk. They're not even listening to you. They're getting ready with the next thing. And what active listening is do I really understand what Phil's telling me? Not do I always agree with it, because people may tell you all kinds of stuff, but you want to make sure I act. So Phil, I'm hearing you say that Mary doesn't do her job well. Is that what you're saying? And you say that because you've worked with her for a while, and is that what you're saying? Now, that may or may not be true, and I might want to check with a couple of other people before I do something with Mary. But as long as Phil understands that I get exactly what he says, that's important. And then if I act on it, it's great. But you can't always act, because a lot of times you have contradictory information.
Mm-hmm.
But I can always listen, and I can always hear. And people, I think you put it well. People want to be heard.
I love that. And I think I'm like, and I'm soaking this in and I'm listening. I'm really trying to listen because, I think obviously this is a conversation and I learned so much. So I want to use my questions and use your time very respectfully. One of the things that came up, particularly in regards to this and, leadership and positivity, and I'm going to do like a really random pivot, is that COVID-19 has really changed the dynamics of how teams work. And I just, this is just one of, this is anecdotal or just your input, but one of the things I struggle with is I'm a face-to-face communicator. I love the water cooler talk. I love just not, putting my head in the door and saying, hey, I wanted some quick clarification. But obviously this has really presented a lot of troubling. Have you seen in regards to coaching or just in regards to your consulting, how COVID-19 has presented a lot of problems for new leaders, just some new challenges in this virtual space?
Well, I think it does. I mean, when there's not a lot of ambient bumping into each other that you had before. So what some people have done is tried to schedule a number of meetings, both individual and group meetings but not just, you want to make sure that they're useful meetings, that you're not just throwing them together to have them. But I think having, say, for instance, weekly or twice a week team meetings scheduled with an agenda that makes sense, and maybe a personal meeting once every couple of weeks with each person on your team, some kind of schedule that allows communication to happen, is useful. I like the fact that you've got Zoom, because at least at Zoom, I can actually see people. It's like Hollywood Squares, but I still can see everybody and we can still communicate. So I think Zoom has picked up, and I'm using Zoom, but Microsoft Teams and others have the same. I think Zoom is the best one of them all. That's one I use because you really can work with people and see them responding. I know. I mean, extroverts have suffered mightily in COVID. Introverts not as much, because they don't need that regular contact as much as extroverts do. But even introverts need that interplay. It's been a difficult time, and it's one of the things that I have recommended to my colleagues at Mason and other places is to keep two kinds of journals. And these aren't journals. You don't spend half an hour writing them. These are like 30-second, 1-minute things. At night before you go to bed, keep a gratitude journal. Write down in a little notebook 3 things that you're grateful for, or 3 things that went well that day. And in the morning, when you get up, right before you hit the bricks, before you get out of bed, think about 3 things that you're optimistic about. That sandwich tends to drive your day in a positive direction. And I think especially during COVID, I didn't know what to do. I was very frustrated because a lot of business that I had already lined up kind of dried out because people weren't meeting, and most of what I do is in face-to-face. We converted all the stuff to online now. We're doing all. In fact, Beth and I are doing a positive leadership thing 2 weeks from now, all online or all virtually. But I did keep up my journals, which I've kept those for probably 6-7 years, and that helped me figure out what I should do. in terms of, being optimistic about the future. I'd make up things every day. Today I'm going to call somebody. Today I'm going to do this, and I would do that. Or I'm going to make a positive video and put it out. Simple stuff like this podcast that you're doing. It energizes you, and it also has an effect on all the people that listen to it. It's tough. I won't get around. I won't. I think this has been the most difficult year outside of being in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. Outside of combat. Now, combat's a whole different game.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's a whole different level. This is we're not asking people to go to war. We're just asking them to stay home. I mean that's the whole different game. But it's very isolating. It's like a little bit like solitary confinement. And if you got little kids, it's really hard. You're seeing that, right? With
yes.
If they go to school, you have to get them online. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to keep them. And you got 2 boys, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And
it
spoke to
yeah, and they both got a lot of testosterone and they're running around. I mean, it's not easy. So gratitude, optimism, I think are 2 things that we can really and kindness, just being decent to other people. Everybody is going through this. Some people are really suffering. I mean, really suffering. And reaching out and being decent to people, I think, is probably another thing that you can do.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking about that too, about purposeful kindness, purposeful gratitude. But also I think one of the things that I've noticed too is kind of lowering the veil is that a lot of leaders now I've seen even are a little bit more vulnerable now in this space. Yeah. They're even admitting like, oh, you hear kids screaming, oh, that I got my kids too screaming. It's like, I feel like even the people that we look up in positions of power are okay with, their chaos in the background. But I'm just curious. I wonder, and this is another just, these are random thoughts that come to my head. Do you think that is going to carry over into the new semi-new normal that, we had this honeymoon period where bosses are a little bit more empathetic or bosses are a little bit more kind? Or you think that bounce back, like once we get back to normal, it's going to be like we never had this experience?
I don't know if it's going to be a normalness. I don't think we're going to end up back where we were before. I think for better or for worse, we've really moved head to a different world that now everybody knows you don't need to go to work to get work done. In white collar, in white collar kinds of jobs. Like if you're working for the city's the police department, you've got to show up. But for jobs like yours and mine, you can counsel people over Zoom just as well as you can do it in person. May not be as much fun, but you can do it. I think we're finding out that, in fact, what the research is saying is it's about 13 to 15% more productive having people work at home. And it's a whole lot less expensive because you don't need office space for them. I mean, there are whole companies, Twitter and Facebook and others that are going completely online and are going to reduce the footprint to almost nothing compared to where they were. So that's hundreds and pays millions of dollars of real estate they can get rid of. And every client I have is actually reducing their footprint because of that. No matter when they come back, they're going to have more hoteling situations. So I don't think we'll get back to where we were. I think we're going to get used to a different new reality. But wouldn't it be nice when you wake up and you got a little sore throat and you say, I'm not going to push through and go to work today. I'm going to work from home when I have to talk. And I can still get a little bit done, but I'm not going to go in and infect everybody else. I think that's a great breakthrough. The mentality when I was in the FBI was you go to work no matter what. And people would show up sick, coughing, get everybody in the office sick. Flu would be all over the place. Now we wear a mask. We do all kinds of things that are just make a lot of sense. I mean, flu's been reduced to 0 this season because everybody's got a mask on. So I think that as hard as it's been, we're learning some real lessons in it. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna-ish, but I do think that a lot of good comes out of it. And I think people have been, I think you're right about people being more vulnerable because you got kids and dogs in the background sometimes. And leaders have just got to say, that's just the way it is. And I've never been inside so many people's homes as I have, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of fun if they don't have a background, you can sometimes, not because you want to be a voyeur, but it's kind of fun to see where people are. And I have a cat walk through the whole thing. It's kind of, I think it's kind of fun. Sometimes it's annoying if it happens over and over again, but
Yeah.
so I don't think we're going back to where we were. I think we're going to go to a different place, and we're going to, as we always do, we're going to tend to integrate the best of both in this. I like the idea of not going to work every day. I think that's a great thing.
I mean,
So
I like it and I don't like it because I like people and I love a bustling campus and
yeah,
I feed off of that energy. But the days where I
yeah,
do go and it's very quiet, I can focus. And I need, sometimes there's no distractions in a quiet campus. So I do see the silver lining there. But at the end of the day, too, I still need people. I think one of the things that do scare me,
yeah.
though, is that learning is not going to be the same. And that, I don't know, as an
Mm,
educator, I still think there's a value to a brick and mortar education and the institution of learning, right? Like you go to college, like you can go to college online. That's the model's been
it's not,
done, but University of Phoenix or whatever, there's whole programs.
yeah,
But I think there's something to just the institutional, the brick and mortar, the buildings um, that will not be
I
replaced.
agree.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I agree. I agree. I think that especially the college experience and working in a university is a lot of fun. I just like the idea of being able to have more control over my schedule. I'll get the work done that I need to get done. I'll teach the classes that need to get taught, but I don't have to be there 40 hours a week. So you can see that I'm actually sitting there. That's the thing I like getting away from. But I love people. I'm an extrovert. I love people. I miss going to the university. I miss going to lunch with people. I really miss that a lot. And so as an extrovert, I would welcome going back. They actually did a study on people not going to work in China, and it's been reproduced as well in the U.S. But they found out that what people really want is control over their schedule. They want to go into work 2 days a week, and the other 3 days they want to work remotely. That's so that kind of gives you the interaction. It lets you control your schedule, and you get some time away for you get to play that they actually found that people who were forced to do full time away from work didn't like it as much as the people that went in a couple of days a week.
All right, I think that's dope.
So it's interesting.
So here's another
It's like a
leadership
blended
question.
thing.
So
Yeah,
so another leadership question is that I think that the other part that I see the devil's advocate is that I don't know, maybe a lot of bosses are scared to have less control because they can't see what people are doing at home. And so what would you
that's
say to that
exactly
part?
right. I think that I would just say, get over yourself. That we've got the data. We've got a year's worth of millions and millions of people working remotely. We get a 13% bump. People like being in control of the schedule. If they get two spouses working, it's the only way some of them can actually exist now. It's very difficult when you have two working spouses. I just say get over it. This is the way it's going to happen. I mean, this isn't the last. I don't think it's the last pandemic we'll ever see. I think there's other things that are out there that may cause us to have for us to have this again. I don't think we're going to be over it right away. I don't think we'll be over this until 2022. I think everybody wants to wishful thinking that it's going to be done this spring and we'll all be back singing Kumbaya. And I don't think we will.
Oh man,
Uh,
come on, Steve, don't do that to me. Like I need to get back
yeah,
to
no, I
normal
mean,
life. But I feel that though.
yeah, yeah. Well, but it also teaches you some stuff. How can you work remotely? Do you need to be like, and this is as much to me as it is to you. Do you need to always be with people? How can you figure out how to not be with people? That kind of stuff. So I think there's lessons to be learned here. And I think if you think, hey, we're going to get through this again, we're not asking people to go to war. We're just saying stay home. There's a big difference. It's not like World War II when almost every other kid was going to war and 500,000 were killed in war. Although lots of people are dying in COVID, but we're trying to keep the numbers down here. And I think we're on the cusp of making some real changes. And I think we're 6 months away from seeing a real drop in things and things starting to get back to normal. But we're not going to be running out licking doorknobs even after you get the shot.
Yeah.
You're not going to be doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, that's funny. So maybe if let's say you're trying to rally the troops, as they say, or what would be one thing you would tell a leader to tell his team during this time? Maybe in that sense of optimism, like a pep talk. What would you tell a leader that you'd pass on to that leader to pass on to a team underneath them?
Take care of your family first, take care of your health, and then take care of work last.
Wow.
I mean, I would be concerned for their families, for their own safety and health, and then we'll get the work done. Don't worry about it. We'll get it done. I wouldn't put work first.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say get the work done at any cost. None of us, there's a few people, maybe firemen and maybe police officers, or maybe military people in combat. Not all military people. Not many of us. If I don't teach a lesson, nobody's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
No bad things are going to happen. So, if we have to put off a test or we have to put off some course or something, just get over yourself. You're not that, it's not that important that we get to do everything. And that's the thing I would just say. What's important now is that we respect other people's safety, the health of their family, and we trust them to do their jobs. They'll do it. Just give them a break. And some people like to work late at night from 11 to 1. Other people love to work early in the morning. Whether you're an owl or a robin, it doesn't really matter. If you get your job done and you take care of your family, but I would say family first and health, personal health, and then get the job done.
I love it.
Focus on those things.
That's might be, was it family, health, and then work? I'm gonna put that because that aligns with a lot of my identities. So this is the part of the show I surprise you. It's called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question, and I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first, so I'll go first.
Who's your favorite athlete?
Okay, so that's a good one. My favorite athlete of all time is Barry Sanders. And I thought Barry Sanders is one of the best running backs of all time. He's he's one of those people that always in the conversation of the what ifs, like what if he was on another team, or what if he didn't retire early. And I was watching a thing about Barry Sanders, which he's totally different than me because I sometimes brag, and I definitely, but he was super humble that he would just, every time he scored a touchdown, he would just hand the ball to the referee. And they said, why aren't, he didn't do any celebrations because he said, I'll be here again. Like he was just, that was the type of guy he was. Like, he was like, I'll be in the end zone again. And I don't know. It kind of aligns with the topic that you just said, that I think they had multiple conversations of why he retired early. And I think a lot of it was he thought of his family and his health, and he didn't want to get his body all beat up because he could have definitely broke the rushing record in like 2 more seasons. But I think he took his health into account. So I don't know.
Okay, so what's your question? What's your question?
So my question for you is, what are I know you're big, your writing temple, as they are, was the Pete's Coffee. So do you have a new place? Do you have like a substitute place to create your writing? Because I know that was a routine, like a real routine that you had that got disrupted by COVID. So what have you done to replace that routine for yourself?
So I have a studio in my basement, and I come down here every morning at 6:45. I do yoga for 15 or 20 minutes. I write from 7 to 9, same as I did at Pete's. I drink Pete's coffee in the morning just to keep it going. But I write every morning, and right now I'm writing a screenplay for. I'm writing a screenplay. I used to write different kinds of things, fiction. I'm writing more fiction now. I wrote a bunch of short stories earlier this year on racism, on anti-racism, I would say, because I was tired of all the nonsense going on. So I did that. But yeah, I'm still writing every morning.
So you just
the routine.
So you created that routine. It's just a different setting, but you're still like, regardless of the, you have a zone, you have your writing zone, and you still do it, and you try to replicate it as close to Pete's as you can.
7 to 9 every morning. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's a lesson that could be a lesson there too.
I've been doing that for 25 years. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing that forever. And having that routine is is comforting to me. It gets me going. And at about 9 o'clock, I go up and see my wife, and because she gets up a little bit later than I do, and I see her. I get up at 4:30. She gets up at about 7, but I see her around 8:39 usually, and we'll talk for a bit, and I go get cleaned up. And my first appointment is usually at 10 or 10:30. I do a lot of Zooms. I do usually 2 or 3 appointments a day if I'm not teaching, or classes and things like that. So almost every day I've got stuff.
Wow. I mean, and this is I can't lie. This is my last question, because and then I'll do the shots and plugs. So when you set your time for your writing, are you like really typing the whole time, or is there sometimes are you just staring at the computer screen? Or
no, sometimes I'm doing research, sometimes I'm staring at it, but a lot of times I do the research before it, so that when I sit down, I can write. I always try to keep something for the next day. I always try to leave a little bit on the previous day so that I can reread what I wrote and start again. But a lot of times when I'm in the writing mode, writing is a lot of things. It's research. It's drafting and redrafting. You're not always writing everything all the time. You have to have something to write about. In order to do that, you have to learn. So I'll watch videos. I'll summarize the videos, and put them in a file. And I'll read some stuff that I like, and I'll underline it, and I'll transpose the stuff in OneNote or something like that. Then I'll start to put it together. Usually when I write something, I write it all the way through the first time as fast as I can. The screenplay I've been writing for a couple of months, I think maybe 2 months, and I'll probably have it done in a month, but it'll be a shitty first draft. I mean, it's just what it is. It's not great, but then I'll fix it and rework the characters, and I'll spend another 6 or 8 months working on many more drafts of it. I use a lot of drafts. I usually have 6, 8, 10 drafts.
Oh, okay. So there you go. That's the
But
secret sauce.
For me, not for everybody though. My wife writes it. When she writes it, it's done. I mean, she spends a lot of time on a sentence, but when it's done, but not me. I plow through it, and then I go back and I clean it up again. It's like doing the driveway. I'll kind of get the big snow out of the way, and then I'll go back again. I'll clean it up a little bit and go do it again later on, and I'll clean it off. That's just the way. That's just my process. Everybody's process is different. I am taking a bunch of courses now, though, through a thing called Master Class, which I found to be the best investment in education I've ever had. I just finished with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I just finished a course with. I'm taking a course now with Helen Mirren, who's a famous British actress. Learning a lot about acting. I'm going to take Samuel L. Jackson's acting class. I took Spike Lee's program on film. So I've watched over 300 videos in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. I mean, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about drama and maybe write some things. I've submitted a screenplay to Netflix through a friend of mine. So we'll see. I don't think anything big is going to happen right away, but what the heck?
Wow.
Keep writing. Keep doing it.
That's amazing. I love that the routine, and it's just something that you've done over 20 years. That it's almost like who you are. Like it's a part of who you are, and just how you wake up. And someone similar to having a cup of coffee, you get up and write. So I think that's very inspiring.
If you want to produce a book, you want to write long things, a lot of things. You just have to write all the time. You just have to have a routine. Somerset Maugham was a famous writer. They said, when do you get inspiration? He said, every morning at 9 o'clock when I sit down at my desk. It's the same thing. I don't wait for inspiration. I just sit down and I go, some days I feel like, oh, crap, I don't really want to write today, but I'll write. And the next day it's easier. And then like today, it was a good writing day. 3 days ago, not so great. But that's just the way it is. But over time, it's like investing in the stock market. If you keep doing it every day, over time, you build a pretty good corpus up. At the end of a year, if you write 1 page a day on average, at the end of a year, you got 365, 300 plus pages. That's the way it works for me. That's why people say, how did you write 25 books? I said, well, I write all the time. I write once, and I write before even most people are up and out. I mean, I do my stuff early in the morning. I get up at 4:30. I have breakfast and I listen to masterclass, at least one or two videos. Like I did finish my Neil deGrasse. That guy is amazing. Have you ever heard him, Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah. He does
I mean,
he does about the cosmos and all the space and all that stuff.
He's one of the smartest guys I have ever seen. And so I'll have breakfast with him. Then I read a little bit for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Then I come down on yoga and then I write. And so by the time 9 o'clock hits and I go up and take a shower, I've been up and about for, 4.5 hours. I'm up for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're tired. So I know you're tired because this is late. So this is the last part of the show, and I'll let you get out of here because I want to respect your time. Shout outs and plugs. So shout outs means show anyone love that you want to show love to, like shout them out. And then plugs, anywhere where people can follow up with you, anything. And I'll put that in the show notes, or anything that you're working on. Definitely put that in the show notes as well. So the stage is set for you. Shout outs and plugs.
So I don't know. I guess the shout outs would be to you and for what you're doing with positive leadership. A lot of folks at George Mason, they keep it going. New president, all the folks that I work with at the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing, great folks working there. And police officers and healthcare workers, anybody out there in the front lines doing that work that they do. It's just, especially healthcare workers. I think they have just done an enormous job. If you want to give somebody the Medal of Honor, those are the folks that ought to get it. I'm so glad that they got the COVID vaccine first, because they have been put through the ringer. So in terms of what I'm working on, people can follow me on LinkedIn, or LinkedIn's probably the best thing for most people. Like I said, I'm writing. I just finished a book on teams, and that book, we're doing a lot of work on that right now. It's called Leading Teams, and we're using the latest research, which is very different than what people would think. Maybe we'd do something else, another show sometime, and I'll explain it. But it's much different than people would think. And I'm writing some fiction now. I spent a lot of time writing about racism, called White Man Woke. That was more therapeutic for me. I'm going to probably try to get a couple of things published there if I can. We'll see how that goes. But just staying with it. So thanks for the opportunity to chat, and hope it goes well for you.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you, Positive Philter listeners. Please check out Dr. Steve Gladis's work. I'll put all his show notes, put all his links in the show notes that you can follow with him, and definitely purchase a copy of his book, Leading Teams. I have a copy and it's great. I glanced through it. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it in detail. Maybe we'll do that in a follow-up episode. If you like this episode, please share it with your family and friends, or you can call the hotline, which is 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Spreading positivity is a movement, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.